disturbed. Yes, you have to be disturbed. The Buddha, before he became the Buddha, was deeply disturbed by these questions. Okay. So you have to be deeply disturbed by these questions because none of us here has attained enlightenment. We are not attained any, we know anyone close to attaining Nirvana. So if you are not deeply disturbed, then why are we in this course? Ask yourself these questions. Okay, we have to be deeply disturbed by this. Okay, now let's try to first we get consensus. Please come. Buddhist studies, semester 1.
Yes, Buddhist studies.
Yeah, Buddhist studies. Semester 1, introduction to Buddhist philosophical traditions. Please take a seat. Yeah, so do we have any insight to offer or the idea or the notion of philosophy? Okay, repeat yourself. We will mostly use Sanskrit and Pali terms, but it's fine, you can contribute more terminologies. Okay, so how is interdependence germane to the doctrine of no self? Try to draw a connection.
Please, can you speak loudly because I don't.
Speak a bit louder.
I can't.
You can move to the front. That's not a that's it. That's it. First step, good point. So if we search for this I, we cannot find this I. And my counter question to you is, if I don't search for this I, do I find it? How am I a separate self and a separate person? My pain is my pain, your pain is your pain. Think about it. All Buddhist schools of philosophy distinguish between the common attitude and the critical attitude. Okay. The self is a constant within a common, mundane, everyday attitudes and dispositions. We are in the throes of the self. Otherwise, why would you, when I asked you to come for this class, why do you bring your own body? Why don't you bring somebody else's body? Conventionally, you are a self, and you cannot come out of that you at will. And that's why you are in the throes of avidya, or avijja, transcendental illusion. Okay, think about this. So you have a sort of name as Sonam has created a very important distinction that runs across all schools of Buddhist philosophy. And this distinction is between conventional truth, reality. Don't write anything, it's just an introductory piece. We will get into the specifics as we make progress in this case. And ultimate truth or ultimate reality. Okay, in Sanskrit we call it the very terms for conventional truth, reality, one term is samviti. Okay, this term is preferred by Nava, Buddha, Chandra. You all know what the Madhyamika is? Medical school. Yeah, one of the 4 major schools. Okay? That's a very superficial way of understanding the Madhyamika. It's very complicated. So trust me about it. Samviti. Okay, another way of relating conventional to reality. Pragyoti. It comes to us from the Sarvastivadi Abhidhammas. Sarvastivadi is the class of the practice of the Madhyamikas. The whole Madhyamika. And firstly, you have something called ultimate requirement. Paramartha Satya for Madhyamika or Dravya Satya for the Sarvastivadi. Don't get overawed, overwhelmed by these technicalities. Okay. We're just giving you a taste of things. Samriti Satya will be defined very precisely and it has to be Parvar Satya, etc. But now at least we have a more refined understanding of no self. And what is that more refined understanding? In fact, you can the insight of no self in reality, but in the reality it is not available. If it is available to you, then what is the relevance of this part? Why do you have it? Okay, so good. You have helped us your mind when I talk about no self, what does it mean? Self somehow exists, right? Are the Buddhists just rejecting a very technical, a very philosophical notion of self, such as the notion of Atma, which is found in the Upanishads? In that case, how is the idea of no self relevant? Because the man on the street would not be concerned with the notion of Atma. You think ordinary people know far from this. So how is it discerned relevant to God? Think about this. So any insight on no self, anything, any preliminary observation, any anecdote? Have you ever been consumed by this idea that maybe I do not exist? Maybe I do not exist in the way others perceive me to exist? Or maybe there's a variance between how others see me and how I see myself. These are all instances of no self. There is no one textual definition of this. You might have a textual definition, but you have to apply it in your own personal lives. So we are all acquainted with no self one way or another. When my friend misunderstands me, I have one intention and my friend attributes some other intention. He accuses me of being a traitor. That is also a worldly manifestation of no self. I have a particular image of self, and in my interaction with my friend, that image of self is so much. What is your understanding of this? Your name first and then please offer yourself. Yes. Thin. What do you think of yourself? Have you ever thought about this problem? Do you think it's a worthwhile philosophical problem at all? Do you think it's just for the textbooks to be? Does it have a real world implication? If I were to praise you right now, would it affirm your idea of self, or would it deeper insight into yourself? If I praise you, do I reinforce your idea of self, or do I give an insight into yourself? Okay, think about this. Okay. And in the next class, you should be ready with your answer. Okay. How about you? Do you have an insight about yourself? The name first?
My name is first, I think we have an image about us, and this is not a true image. And ourself, non-self is meaning that our personality doesn't have an essential and what is unchangeable. Because for time to time, the personality or changes. And I remember a dialogue between Nagashino and Linda in Milano, and Nagashino said, everybody called me Nagashino, but I don't know who is Nagashino.
Okay.
And the personality has different parts, and these parts, the relation among these parts is in evolution, is changing always. Doesn't exist the constant part or essence.
So, in the absence of a constant, enduring, essential component to human personality or selfhood, what is it? I'm just asking you a small question. What is it that makes me, for instance, privilege my own welfare and preservation over that of others? And can you conceive, you have just an addendum to this question, can you conceive a human being who does not privilege their own welfare, their own flourishing over that of everybody else? Is it possible to go that far in the pursuit of no self? Because Buddhists say it is possible. If you read the ethics of the Bodhisattva, if you read the Bodhicharyavatara of Shantidev in the 8th chapter says that the self does not exist. The self can be reduced. It is like a row of ants. It is like a survival over the coming 20 years. When I go back to the mess at 1:30, I will not feel, into my own heart as much as I'm committed to that business. So what is this concept? Is it possible to attain this concept in any way? Okay. Another interesting question, which we will gradually examine how this works. Anything else you want to say? Sajjan. S-A-J, Sajjan. From Maharashtra. Okay, anything on yourself? What is this? Anything that comes to your mind. It doesn't have to be technical. You don't have to go text. Anything that comes to you. As I said, some of you who have just joined us, the quest to study Buddhism is not an empty, vain academic pursuit. It comes from a place of deep dissatisfaction with yourself and the world. The Buddha, before he became the Buddha, was consumed by such dissatisfaction. If you don't have that dissatisfaction, or if you are ashamed to admit to such dissatisfaction, then I don't know, you're all wasting your time on this place. Agreed? What are we doing to this study? Then we should study, economics or engineering. But these questions do not bother us. Because we are bothered by these questions in economy. What is it that bothers you about yourself, your personality in this world, your existence in this? Start with the first principles. That's how philosophy, makes inroads and head. First principles. The Prince Siddhartha was bothered by the four holy sites which confronted him. Okay, there must be some similar sites in your own life. Something must have bothered you. If you think that no, everything is hunky-dory and I don't have to question my notion of selfhood, these are just trivial issues, then you're wasting our time, you're wasting government's money, you're wasting your parents' money. Something must be there, right? That must have bothered you about yourself. Have you thought about it? Or if you don't want to share it with us, that's also fine. What insight about no sin? Angelica told us something about no sin. There's no kernel, there's no essence, there's what we call in Sanskrit, there's no swabha to our personality. This will become more clear as you delve deeper into portions of the Madhyamakarika of Acharya Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna says, uttering this in Sanskrit, Apratitya samutpanno dharma kashchinyate. A dharma which is not dependently originated is noble created. Apratitya samutpanno dharma kashchinyate. Tasmat shunyo hi dharma kashchinyate. Therefore, a dharma which is not empty is noble evident, 24/90 of the Madhyamakarika. Okay, these are highly technical insights into very complicated Buddhist doctrinal insights. What is your own idea and your own view about it? That should be outside. Okay, if some of you haven't thought about this, then this is your homework. Go home to spend some time with yourself, pondering over these things. How do I exist? If I don't exist, how do I not exist? And then these disturbing questions. Why is it that I can live for more welfare over the community? Contra the Venerable Shanti. Come back with answers to these questions and then we can discuss more. Nandiji from exam. क्या है अनंता क्या है अनात्मा क्या है speak in a language of your choice. If you wish to speak in Hindi, that's fine. I will translate. आप तो अगर पढ़ाई नहीं कर you expect so much time pondering these issues in your monastery. What is ananta? What is anatma? Sabbe sankhara ananta. Sabbe sankhara ananta. What does this mean? What is anatta? Tell us something, please. Give us some experience from your career in meditation, from the inroads you made in meditation. Enlighten us. Give us on the path towards enlightenment. Tell us something.
You can see when I do it, and then you can see here. So like vipassana, when I do it, yes. So when I'm going walk, and you can focus that line. And
Okay. So in Vipassana on the fourth day of Adhitthana or Adhishthana, you are asked to observe your own bodily sensations as they rise and fall, right? First you are concentrating on your own breath, this small part of your nostril. Okay? When you master your breath, you proceed into Adhitthana or Adhishthana. You sit very still and you just observe the sensations that rise and fall in your body. And then you convince yourself that those sensations will not belong to me because they rise and fall. How do I grasp them? Before I even begin to grasp them, you see. And then on the 10th day, when the person ends, you get some experiential acquaintance with yourself. So if someone insults you, then instead of focusing on the insult, you are done with it. Some of us might have done it. Who was done? Yes. So what happens when people see Krishna? You have a defensive mechanism. When you are insulted by somebody, it reinforces your ideas. The insult is thrown at me. Okay, therefore, you don't do this reasoning in your head, it all happens automatically. Therefore, I must exist. Because who is grasping at this? But in Vipassana, you take a pause, you say that no, sensations that arise in my body when the insult is thrown at me arise and cease. So who is that insult guy? Who is that insult guy? It is not me. Very important inside of us. To introduce a perspective from meditation. Okay, sister, would you like to say something about non-self? Excuse me, sister. No self, non-self, anatta, anatta. What language are you talking about? Sanskrit? Anything on no self? What is no self in Vietnamese? Okay. Yeah, please, yes, sister.
Thailand đi.
Anything?
Thailand đi.
You are a member of this church.
Không, Thailand đi. Trời ơi, con đang rồi.
Okay, maybe later. How about you?
Yes, Thailand đi.
Yes.
Well, basically, as I know about myself, is that
Speak up. Louder. Address the class.
our body is a combination of 5 aggregates.
Is the body a combination of 5 aggregates? Or is the self a combination of 5 aggregates? Because Rupa Skandha is one part of the Panchaskandha.
Yeah.
Don't make that mistake when they leave. If you make that mistake, then what are you going to expect of me? I'm not going to remember what you're
Because like everything is made from something, and
everything
everything
can be
is
reduced to
changed.
something.
So basically, if the self is the concept that everything must remain as they are, but the non-self is that everything must change,
Okay.
and they change time after time.
Good point.
So that if we grasp that point, we see that I have read one sutra from Samyutta Nikaya that Buddha has said about if self is permanent, then we can command the self to be like this or to be like that. But because the self is impermanent, so that we cannot command the self to be like this or to be like that.
Very interesting. So you are saying that there is a self, but it is impermanent. You are not saying that the self does not exist at all. Is that what you say? I think that's what you are saying. Agreed? 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 That's what you are saying. The self exists, but it is not permanent. Okay? So that is another problem. Can I get attached to an impermanent self? Can an impermanent self be a hindrance for me to be ethical, to practice Shila? Can an impermanent self be a hindrance on my path to Nibbana? The questions. Because, as I said at the beginning of this class, not many people think that their self is permanent. I think most people have a folk understanding or a non-academic understanding of themselves, that they change. They see that they're not the same as they were when they were growing up, as kids, as infants, as teenagers. Okay. A person in the 60s would be very conscious of the fact that he's not the same as he was when he was in his 20s or 30s. Okay. So I think everybody knows that permanent self is not exist. So what is Shakyamuni Buddha doing? Why is he teaching us about yourself? Why is he teaching us about anatta, anatta, when everybody knows this? And the big question not everybody thinks that the self is permanent. I think no one amongst us will think that the self is permanent. We all see that our body has changed. We all see that our ideas, our way of thinking has changed. You come to a university with zero knowledge, and after 3-4 years you leave the university with some knowledge. So you will understand how the knowledge has changed. So who is this doctrine of no self being directed at? If nobody would come to a notion of permanence.
What you said here is exactly the same person.
Yeah, that's a conventional self. I'm conventionally identical to my past selves, and I'm conventionally identical to my future selves. But it's okay. Somebody is something. Then what is the problem? What is the problem? Okay? Your name? Adarsh Kumar. Yes, Adarsh. Any insight? You understood the problem, right? No. Okay, think about it. Okay. That's your homework for today. You have to think about it. Explore your own experiences. Explore your own consciousness to come up with answers. Don't just dive into the text when you don't know anything about yourself. That could be a dishonest endeavor or a dishonest project. First know yourself and then consider the rest. Okay, so the good sister, yes, please. Anything about yourself?
Sorry, I still really don't know what topic now discussing here.
No self. You have.
Anasta.
Yeah.
Anatta.
Anatta.
Anatta. Anatta. Udgal Meratma.
So
Udgal Meratma.
just I think the same emptiness.
Yeah, empty, but empty of what? Empty in what sense? What does emptiness mean? See, what we are trying to do here is we are trying to avoid textual or strictly academic understanding of concepts which have a deep impact on our lives. Think of it, we just pay lip service to these concepts which we deeply experience. So there is a constant wedge or constant gap between what the literature says and how we experience these things. Yes, please. You're existing with others. Okay, Pratik is some so what I think if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is that even though our existence is causally determined, Pratik ke samutpanna, we behave as if we are not causally determined. We behave as if we are independent of dependent origination. Okay, that is one thing. That is actually not all Buddhist schools subscribe to the small artha. It is subscribed to by the schools of Vietnam and Dhamma, Yogacara, Sautrantika, Yogacara. Madhyamaka or Madhyamika will not defend this. Okay, and the Sarvastivadin will have a very different theory of atoms. Sarvapasti. The Dharma exists in past, present, and future. So it's very subtle. As I told you, Buddhist philosophy is not only. So many internal divergences and differences that is will form your mind. It's very, very fascinating. Okay. So before we get into all this, we need to know where we stand. Okay. So what you're saying is that a general attitude is that we are not codependently originated. And yet we treat ourselves as if we are not codependently originated, but we are in reality. Okay. Okay, let me ask you a proper question. So what will you do once this class ends? What will all of you, where will all of you head? To the mess. Why will you do this? To eat. Now, if you head to the mess to eat, are you not affirming that you are codependently originated, that your body requires food to sustain? You are dependent upon something. So how can you say that you are not aware that you are codependently originated? Maybe not in a technical sense, but in some way we do know that we are dependent on the I need to head to eat. In that case, we have already been known. Because if we are deeply aware that we are codependent to originator, and Nagarjuna in the Bhumi Madhyama Karika, 24 chapter 18 says, the silver mode is very famous for some reason. What is this? यह प्रतीत्य समुपादः शून्यतां तां चक्षुः प्रकृतिरुपादाय प्रतिपत्सैव प्रतिपा. It is this dependent origination that we call emptiness. This is the conventional, this is conceptually constructed, and this is the middle way. So if we are deeply aware that we are codependently originated, we are also deeply aware that we are empty. So we are all Buddhas or Bodhisattvas. Yeah, what's the point?
I cannot understand anything.
Sorry? Emptiness is not easy to understand.
Yeah, because in English they have empty, so the borrowed from English language.
So what does Shunyata mean? Shunyata. Nagarjuna wrote in Sanskrit. So let us talk about what it is in Sanskrit.
Anyway, I cannot explain clearly because my English is so limited.
Speak in Vietnamese. In the way you have.
Bây giờ bạn in Việt Nam là chân không chịu hiểu, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, chân không chịu hiểu. That means emptiness and also matrix existence.
It's like a super emptiness. It's called
Chân không
emptiness,
chịu
but
hưởng là
if
theo
you're covered with
nhất
this
thiết hữu bổ ấy nha.
super sunyata, super emptiness. But that is more than emptiness.
More than emptiness.
From the emptiness that have everything, but from anything that have the emptiness.
I'm sorry, from?
From the emptiness that will have everything, but from the everything that have the emptiness.
Okay, everything has emptiness.
Yeah.
I will share with you about the Hot Sutra.
Yeah, right.
Translation in English already. Hot Sutra, right? That's right.
Sutra.
Hot Sutra. So,
Form is emptiness, emptiness.
yeah, so we can understand about the emptiness for that
Okay,
meaning.
okay. So let us start with the definition of emptiness we find in the Bhumi Madhyama Karika 24:18. Do you accept this definition? यह प्रतीत्य समुत्पादः शून्यतां तां प्रचक्षुः स प्रज्ञप्तिरुपादाय प्रतिपत्स एव मुच्यते. Okay. Do you accept this definition? Do you accept that the emptiness is dependent origination, pratitya samutpat? Nagarjuna says this. If you don't accept, then you don't accept Nagarjuna. No, the question is, so yes.
I declare by Nagarjuna that emptiness is neither Soka. It
Neither
is
Soka. Absolutely. Okay, that's a very good point. And see, again, we are going to make it to the Bhumi Madhyama Karika and Nagarjuna. So what Nagarjuna does in the Bhumi Madhyama Karika is very staunchly refuses to offer positive arguments. Okay, because the Vigraha development, he says, Nasti Jama, okay, I do not have a position. And therefore, if you attribute the position to me, the fault is yours. Because what I do is, I identify the position of the opponent and I show the inconsistencies within the position. This method is known as the Prasangavada. In English, you might be familiar with the term reductio ad absurdum. You take the opponent's position and you eliminate absurdities. Okay. So when Nagarjuna says that emptiness is illusory, he is not actually offering a positive reference of to emptiness. Okay. You understand the word reference? It comes from philosophy. When I say use the word chair, does this word chair have a positive reference? Convention. It has a positive reference, at least conventionally. Right? When I say chair, then you will not say, okay, show me a chair. Can you do that? Sure, point towards the chair. Okay, so it has a conventional reference. Nagarjuna says the Shunyata does not even have a conventional reference. Those who make a view out of Shunyata are like people who have mounted a horse and have forgotten that they are animals. So this is another complicated philosophical story. Why Nagarjuna refutes Swabhava, because in the whole Madhyamakarika, Nagarjuna has one specific component. Vaibhashika Sarvasti Madhyamika. Vaibhashika Sarvasti Madhyamika takes the doctrine of Panchaskarma and contains that on the framework of two rules that while the self, conventional self, is conventionally existing, it has a pragyapti sattva, it can be reduced to its constituent parts, which are the dharmas, which bear their own sutras. So Abhidharma tradition will find it within the Pali, will find it in the Sanskrit. Okay. And the Abhidharmika would say that what the self can be reduced to in turn cannot be reduced to anything else. Because if even that is reduced to something else, then what will construct a self out of? You cannot construct an item of conventional reality out of nothing. There has to be a ground, a locus to construct conventional reality out of. It is this position that Nagarjuna criticizes in the movement, nothing else. Therefore, he equates Shunita with Niswabhavata, but actually it is not even Niswabhavata. It is Niswabhavata only in the context of the framework of the dialogue which we find in the movement. Because Swabhava is a technical term, which is a Sarvastivadi process. Outside this framework, Niswabhavata as Shunita as Niswabhavata is no. It is very hard to understand. It is not an easy concept to grasp. Shunita is ground. 2418 also lays the foundation of emptiness of emptiness. If Shunyata itself is a conceptual construct, then where does it stand? How do you define what is Shunyata construct? It's not easy to understand. Okay, so this is a bit deep. You can go even deeper in the This discussion is for more general. So you said something what you would say? Dependent origination. So you are somehow aware that your existence is dependent upon all these interpretations. Kirtu and Pratyay. Okay. So then how do you achieve the emptiness? You are attachment to what? So can you, for instance, also realize that attachment to anger, desire is also conditioned? Anger doesn't arise in a vacuum. There has to be something to make you angry. So the anger is also caused. That's in a way criticism. So you, at the same time, you have some equivalence. So maybe full equivalence with pratikasam. So have you achieved an equivalence? You have to give a positive answer to this question. It is an absurd question. Compassion. You can separate compassion also. Emptiness is, compassion is the ethical correlate of emptiness. Emptiness is understanding of ontology. So in philosophy, we don't confuse it. You can realize emptiness without having compassion. Now it's a different matter that in the more mature Bodhisattva literature, the writers such as Shantidev draw this equivalence between pragya and pai, shunyata and karuna, etc. Suppose say you can generate compassion also. You generate compassion for yourself. In that case, have you achieved emptiness? But if you generate compassion, you don't generate compassion for ourselves, like, oh me, look how I am suffering. Now let me ask you a slightly deeper philosophical question. If you do not exist, there is no self, and if you generate compassion for you, then are you being selfish? So we will end the class on this note. This is the homework for all of you. You have to try to find answers for these questions. Okay? Come up with insights and be very careful. So my training is in Buddhist studies and in Western philosophy. So I take the rigor of Western philosophy. That is my training. Okay. Yeah. So I'll continue with that. If you want to okay, so it's good, right? Why should we learn a system in institution? We can philosophy for the Buddhist is always analogical. Okay, so this is the class.